These brackets at the 24s, they don't just go at 24 on center. We have to do like an offset because this one's 6-ply.
Right.
This one's 4-ply.
Because the girder truss is going to sit
and this
next to the post.
This is the end wall. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and start working on column brackets as the first part of our process because the foundation's done. The wall has been backfilled, it's been insulated, and now it's ready to get built, right? But the first thing we need to do is get all the post brackets laid out exactly where they need to be. As I stated earlier and in the intro to this build, it's not standard. We don't have 8-foot on center posts. We got one wall that's standard actually. Only one wall, the back end wall. But it's actually a little bit different because it's kind of like a sidewall. So anyway, we're gonna get our tools, we're gonna get set up, we're gonna get some square measurements, making sure that this foundation is good, which I feel good about it. But then we're gonna go through the layout and talk about the brackets that we're gonna be using and kind of the process and why it is the way it is. So let's
get into it.
All right, so the first thing that we're gonna do is get our overall dimension. We're gonna make sure that our walls are 45 by 80. Greg, you've got that end, and everything is gonna be pulled off of this corner down here. When I talked with my concrete contractor, this was the corner I wanted everything pulled off of so that my doorways, both my man door, my porch, my overhead door, everything was dimensionally accurate from this corner. When you do concrete forms, things can grow. I think this grew like a 1/4 inch or something like that. So if you're always pulling from one corner, at least everything is consistent and all the odd variants in your wall are kind of on the back end. So this is our front, this is where we're gonna start. Greg, why don't you just hook it for now and we'll just see what we come up with, okay? So we should be 80, and as you can see, we are 80-foot 1/4 inch. There's just really no way around that when you're putting forms together. They grow a little bit. So I like that. Let's just check our back wall, depending on where I put it, because this is where the corner knockout is. We're like right at 80 also. So that's a good thing. Dimensions are always nice, but I don't care if it's the exact dimension, but not square. Square is the most important. So we're gonna go back, we're gonna start on this corner. We're gonna get marks from that corner, 45 and 80, and then we're gonna set up square, make sure it's square, and then we'll come over and do this corner. Now I'm gonna do this the old fashioned way. I'm gonna use a tape measure because I know a lot of you guys don't have a Stabila LA180, but then I'm probably gonna check it with a 180 at the end just to make sure it's perfect. Greg said I have to. Yes. Listen guys, foundation and layout are the most important part of the job because if this isn't done right, everything up from here is affected. So I don't mind spending a little bit extra time double checking my work, making sure it's as good as possible, because I know it will make my job better and easier in the future. So spend time here, understand your layout, what square is, how to get square. You will be a much happier builder. Okay, Greg, you want to burn me a foot and I'm going to get a mark here. This is our bracket layout, not our wall layout, because our walls will eventually be all the way out to the outside dimension. Our post will be in 1.5 inches because that is inside of our girts. Our girts will have to go around the outside. So Greg is holding me at 1 foot on his 1.5 inch mark, and I'm gonna go 45.9 because that is also an 1.5 inches. So this is where my girt will go. My post will set right in here, which is what we're looking for at this moment. I'm like a 1/2 inch long over here now. How's that possible?
I don't know. Good question.
Just gotta make sure Greg's got it right. He's remarking it, so I think he might have had it wrong.
Wonder if it's my tape measure.
Maybe we should get you a new tape measure. It's all right, it's fine. It's about the same. It's fine. 1/2 inch is not even an issue, so we don't care about 1/2 inch. We just can't be an inch because really 1/2 inch is not bad because that'll put our sheathing on the walls almost flush with the concrete, which makes it easier to tape. So I'm all good with that. All right, Greg, we're gonna just assume our concrete guy is good and let's get some marks. So go ahead and head down here. I'll get an 80-foot mark and then we'll check for square. 44-foot 9-inch rise and 79-foot 9-inch run. Because we gotta take an 1.5 inches around the entire perimeter. That gives me a 91 5 3/8. 92 5 3/8 when you burn a foot. Now the reason I don't like to use a tape measure is it's cold today. So we don't have a whole lot of expansion on the tape measure, but If you look through the middle of the job site now, you can see that it's sagged down. That is causing irregularities in my dimension. If I pull really tight, then I worry about overstretching the tape. Steel tape is obviously good, but you know, this is gonna get us close, but that's why I like the 180, because it's even closer. So I've got my 1.5 inch mark that I gave him, and then you can see if I'm just kind of eyeballing it, I would say that is where my 3/8 is, right? So I'm just gonna make a little tick mark. And Greg is now gonna go to the other end, and we're gonna see where 44.9 is after we check one more diagonal. So Greg made me a new mark. Here's what I'm going to do first. Okay, we had this mark right here. This was our 79.9, all right? This was my original mark, and when we measured it, we were an eighth small. So he made this mark at 44.9. So now I'm gonna pull this diagonal. I mean, I'm not doing anything different. For whatever reason, I was here before. And do you see how I can make this work regardless? That's because the tape itself has movement, and it also is sagging in the middle. So the harder I pull it, the more I'm kind of stretching it, and I can make this dimension, not whatever I want, but within a reason. You're talking 1/8 and 1/4, I can make it work. So we've got accurate dimensions around the perimeter, and we check square twice, and we're at 992, 5 3/8. That is good. But because it's my building, and I want to make sure it's perfect, I'm gonna throw up the 180 and I'm gonna check it. But if you don't have a 180, this is all you need to do. You get your dimensions, pull from one point in the beginning, and always use that as your constant. Get all your dimensions and then start squaring it up. Pretty simple. I'd say Joel did a good job on the foundation. Almost everything is at 1.5 inches, except for one corner. And you gotta have growth somewhere in a concrete wall because forms aren't perfect. They kind of grow a little bit here or there. So, all right, let's get the 180 out, Greg. Let's double check it. And then the reason I like the 180 also is I can go through and I can mark all my doorways off the laser instead of having to snap lines. And on these longer walls, I don't like snapping a line. I like to find a midpoint. So the 180 does have its advantages, but I understand not everybody's gonna go spend $2,000, especially if you're not doing this as a career. For the visual people out there, just so you can understand exactly what I'm talking about, here's my building, right? We've got 45 and we've got 80. What Greg and I did was this front corner, that's our constant. We pulled tape measures here and here to get 44.9 and 79.9. Remember, that's because our post is actually inset 1.5 inches from the total dimension for our wall girts to go around. So once we have these dimensions here locked in and this dimension locked in order to find these, we use the Pythagorean theorem to check for square. So once you have these two dimensions locked in, what you can do is you can use math to figure out this dimension to confirm that this point and this point are accurate, which was our 91, 5 3/8. So once this is good, we know that's good, we can then pull off of these dimensions in either direction, getting our 79.9 and 44.9 point right here, and check this diagonal. So once this diagonal, and your 4 dimensions are where you want them, within an 1/8 inch or so, then you're gonna be good to go. So once the 180 is set up, we're just gonna go ahead and put the receiver on the other end. We're gonna lock it on. It uses a wireless signal to move the actual laser to the receiver so we can lock onto our point that was already predetermined. The 180 actually gives you a perfectly perpendicular laser line. So once we have it locked onto our big wall in the front, that's our constant, it's gonna give us a 90-degree laser that we can lock on for our side wall. So it makes it almost guess-free. We don't have to pull a diagonal to ensure that it's square. It will be square. I feel pretty good about our tape measure. I feel good about the 180. So now we've got our 4 corners defined square and dimensionally accurate. We can now go ahead and start laying out where our brackets go, and that's what we'll do next. We're gonna go ahead and snap lines because it is easier than taking the laser to each bracket after you've laid it out. So we know that our marks are in a good spot, so we can just kind of snap between them. You good?
Yep.
Nice, look at that line. And because we have those marks on the doors, we don't have to snap through doorways where sometimes you can get some wind. It's just good practice, and I think you get a more accurate snap line. You know, one of the common mistakes of a guy that's very unseasoned in the ways of snapping lines, most guys will take that line, they'll over snap the line. When you have a chalk line, and it's a good seasoned chalk line, you don't have to pull the crap out of it. You got to make sure it's straight, so if it's breezy or whatever. But when you snap the line, you don't have to pull it up 10 feet to get it to snap. It's just a little, boom. And there's the most beautiful of lines. Just a little tip. All right, snap line's done. Now it's time to get our bracket dimensions laid out, which is where it's a little bit tricky because normally we would just go and measure all of our 8-foot centers. This building's got a couple unique post locations, so we got to do a little bit of math, and I think I did most of it last night on a drawing, so we didn't have to worry about doing it here on site. I don't know where Greg went. I need him to help me pull some tape measures. 15, 10.5, center. This is the only wall that we have that's standard. These other ones will have a couple unique dimensions. So Greg, let's get the tape measure and let's run out this front wall first with this garage door. I feel like that's, get that one out of the way. And we're gonna pull everything. Hey, so what we're doing is, I've got my sheet here. This is one of the pages in the plan, and it's got all the post layout. There's going to be modifications to this plan as we go because it's a work in progress. At this stage, sometimes a builder gets into the process and things just change. You decide that, hey, this is a dumb way of doing it. We need to change it. So what I've done is I've actually kind of highlighted a couple of these post locations which changed because I met with my engineer for my trusses and we determined that these posts needed to be moved a little bit off their standard 8-foot on center. So what we're doing is I'm just going through and we're making all of our post marks so you can see 8-foot on center, 8-foot on center. Now this one, I've actually got to be 23 foot, 11.25 to the center point. And that's just because of the way the trusses are done, and that will all come later. But I just wanted to give you guys an idea that the plans do come with a detailed layout. And if you purchase a plan and we make a change later on down the road of this process, so like, you know, maybe in the finishing stages and you bought a plan way back when we're doing the foundation, I will make sure that you get a free copy of the completed, updated plan when it's all done. Also, guys, we're just messing around. I didn't hit Greg. This is just, no, it's okay, dude. It's a prank. It's a prank. It's just a little bit of graphite. We thought it'd be funny. So, all right, buddy, go ahead and hold me at a foot. Right. Even though I wrote this down already, I'm gonna probably double check this again. 8, 10.5, and I know my 16, 10.5 is correct, but this post here, I have it wrote down at 23, 10.5 to edge, Greg. 23, 10.5 edge, okay. Which is because that truss is the outside of 24 foot for the upper roof. You know, a lot of times we show up to a job site, Greg knows nothing, like literally nothing about the building. And I mean, I've told him about what I'm doing and I tell him about projects we have, but most of the time, all of these things that we're doing are standardized, and that's where the efficiency comes into play. But things like what we're doing and we're talking about right now, I mean, this is the first time he's kind of hearing about it, so I am trying to explain it so that he understands why I've done what I've done, and it will make sense to him as well as you guys. So we're gonna put it on this side, and then we're back to a normal standard layout of 32, 10.5, 40 foot, 10.5, 48, 10.5. This is the odd one right here too. And this one is 23, 11.25 to the center, which will make the edge 56, 10.5 would normally be my center.
Right.
And if this was the outside of a building, that would be the outside of the post.
Correct.
So when the truss gets put onto that ply at 53, 10.5 edge, then it will be like a full 24-foot building over on this side. So that is correct. This is my center point. I'm good there. I like that. So let's cross that off. This is my center. And then we've got a doorway to deal with, which I always make my doorways 1.5 inches bigger than the dimension. So this is an 18-foot door. We're gonna make it 18'3". And that is because our floor is gonna be here and I need to drop some framing down on the inside. So by giving myself another 1.5 inches, I can drop a 2x down, which means, man, this is spot on. Look at that, that's supposed to be at 59.9 and it's at 59.9. That's amazing, 4.5. So there's that. 4.5 is my width of my column. This should be 77 or 78 because I've added a foot, but this wall got off just a little bit clearly by about 1/8 or so. So we're gonna just go 4.5, which is where this should be. edge, and then here we're at 80'9", which means 79.9 when we burn a foot. Okay, I think I'm good with that. All right, so we're using, and I've been using these things for literally 12 years probably, somewhere in there, 10, 12 years. These are Midwest Perma Column Brackets. Now, I see some people, they might go to like a weld shop and have somebody weld up some brackets, and it's probably just fine. What I like about these is these are ICC rated. They've done all the engineering. I can give a spec book to somebody that is curious about wind uplift and shear strength and how everything works. And if you're building a barn dominium, if you're doing a project where they say, hey, you need an approved foundation system, and let's say they don't want you putting wood in the ground, or they don't want you doing a concrete pier, they want a full ready-mix frost wall or foundation wall. We've had that happen to us. These brackets, they're engineered and they are approved with current code. So this is a great system. We like them, and they're not too far from us. So if you guys want to buy them, I actually, if you kind of throw out my name, they'll probably give you a discount. Maybe I'll throw their number down below because they will ship. They'll ship anywhere. So it's just you're going to pay more if you're in Hawaii and they're in the Midwest. I do need my hearing protection though. RRB10, isotunes.com. Save $10 on your next set of
$10 or 10%?
I think it's $10.
I thought it was 10%.
Well, I think
I
it's
guess
10.
I don't know.
I don't know.
You would know better.
I really don't. So because these brackets measure 5 inches in width and our columns are about 5.5, we're just making sure we get our nice line with our marker so that it doesn't go anywhere, but then we're gonna back this bracket off of that line so that when we set our post in there, if this bracket or the top of wall has any imperfection in it, we don't want our bracket going in or out of the post. So we're just trying to center this in the post itself. So we'll do the tap cons, we'll get everything set, and then we'll come back through and we'll put our big boy anchors in, which are the Titan HD anchor bolts. Now the reason we don't just go and put the big Simpson anchor bolts in there is because this is a lot easier and precise to make sure that the bracket doesn't move around. Sometimes with a bigger SDS bit, you can get some jumping when you go to start your hole. So I like to just make sure that it's good and set, and I have 4 holes. So if one of them messes up, I could in theory not put that fastener in, readjust it, and then I get another chance, versus I've only got 2 of the big holes, 1 on each side. I don't really get a second chance if I make a bad hole. So once we've gone through with the little guy, put the tap cons in, Greg come behind and drilled the big holes, and all we're gonna do here is I'm just gonna remove that dust. If you're doing an epoxy fastener, then you definitely need to make sure that this hole is as clean as possible. You're gonna maybe take one of those blowers, blow it out, vac it out. But with these Simpson Titan HD anchor bolts, I don't have to do that. I could epoxy these, but I don't have to, and it's not really necessary for our application. And I dig these holes a little bit deeper, and we're just gonna suck that down. So all that little bit of loose material, as that fastener goes in and kind of scars out the inside, you can kind of see this guy is kind of serrated on the very start of it, and then they kind of get smooth on the end. That's because it's gonna dig into that concrete and create a channel for this fastener. And then with a nice solid tap, we know that bracket's not going nowhere. And then I'm actually gonna come back and I'm gonna fill this hole in with another tap con. Not because like engineering requires it. I just think if they got a hole, I might as well fill it. You know what I'm saying? Like that's my mentality. All right, now that all of our intermediate brackets, these are the full brackets that are gonna accept a post and get bolted through like normal, are in, we're gonna go to our corner bracket. This is a cutoff from these brackets, but this is also what you would buy. It's called like a universal corner jam bracket because this is gonna sit here and then your post is gonna sit next to it, and it's only gonna get a through bolt with 1 ear of metal. We don't really have to worry about the structure on the corner because that's being taken care of out here and out here. Kind of where it comes together, it's nice and strong, right? So I just take a standard universal bracket and cut it in half to get 2 corners or jams. Now, this is a little bit unique. This is our end wall, this is our side wall. Typically, we're gonna put these brackets in an orientation so that they match the sidewall brackets, and that the strength axis of our post is in such a manner that it's kind of resisting the side-to-side movement of the truss. However, this end wall is actually a sidewall in this building because of the way the trusses are gonna go. So we decided we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna flip this to match our sidewalls. I don't know that it really matters in this instance because of all the stuff we got going on, but all I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna go ahead and give myself a 4.5 inch measurement. So I'm at 14.5 and I'm gonna mark 10. It's just always easier than trying to line up your tape exactly and then mark 4.5, I feel like. And then we're just gonna go ahead and set this bracket so we know where to set our post to. Go ahead and hit this one too, just for
Might as well.
For the heck of it, you know? Perfect, okay. That way if it rains between now and setting post, I don't think it's gonna, but we'll know exactly where we should put it anyway. All right, throw that bad boy in there. Oh. Yeah, that's not going anywhere, guys. So now we've got our brackets done. That is the end of this video. This is the layout, the brackets, and it's the start. This is literally the first thing that me and Greg get to do, or Greg and I for you English people out there, on this project that really takes us to, you know, getting the build started. So now that this is done, we're going to transition into getting our laser out, getting our post made up, and building walls, but that's gonna be in the next video. So if you guys wanna follow along with this process, I think it's gonna be awesome. I am super pumped, obviously. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. That's gonna be down here in this corner. But also here you guys can check out one of the other videos in the series. But with that, we're gonna go ahead and clean up, get out of here for today, and we'll be back tomorrow and start building this thing. I have it's literally perfect, dude. He's like, okay, can you close your eye and like look up a little? Yeah, there we go.